Hi there, and welcome back to Season 9 of the Mission Forward podcast. So in just a few days, we have a fantastic event coming up. It's our 10th annual Mission Forward Live, and we have just a few seats left. Head on over to missionforward.us/live to check out the incredible lineup of speakers, explore the agenda, and reserve your seat for this virtual half-day conference. At this event, we'll bring context to some of the more complicated issues facing leaders today, and we will provide practical strategies for moving forward. You're not going to want to miss it. Our keynote for that event is the incredible and legendary peace builder, John Paul Lederach, who I wrote about recently in my weekly Finding the Words column. I wanted to share that reflection with you here today as we gear up to share an excerpt of my conversation with John Paul next week on this podcast. So with that, let me bring you Common Ground. Not too long ago, I joined dozens of university leaders as they honed skills to navigate political conflict on campus. It was a preventative measure, really, to support their soon-to-return students through the remainder of this election season, and to help one another maintain open and peaceful dialogue across contested issues. The session started with each participant submitting one word about how it feels to enter into political conversations. Slowly, a virtual word cloud started to form on the large conference room screen. Anxious, curious, tense, uncomfortable, nervous, guarded, scared, avoidant, anxious, anxious, anxious. When discussing contested issues, it can be hard not to feel anxious, and it can be hard to find common ground. Honestly, it often feels easier to avoid than to understand. That's why I found such resonance and hope in John Paul Lederach's latest work, The Pocket Guide for Facing Down a Civil War, surprising ideas from everyday people who shifted the cycles of violence. Now, Lederach is a renowned peace-building leader who has engaged with peace processes around the world for 4 decades now. And in his latest book, which is available as a free download on his website, he offers practical insights grounded in global experience to help his readers navigate and address the conflicts we face in our communities and in our country. John Paul gives context, structure, and a frame for finding common ground and for reinvesting in the power of improbable dialogue. As he wrote in a powerful Washington Post op-ed not too long ago, with our current divides, many people feel forced into choosing sides. We pull back from relationships where even a hint of political difference exists. We consider who said something and whom they associate with to judge the merit of what they said. We talk a lot about those we don't like. We rarely talk with them. To feel safer, we engage only with people who agree with us. Achieving and sustaining an end to conflict requires a web of people who, despite their differences, are willing to confront the forces of violence where they live. They suggest a way forward for us." End quote. John Paul so effectively says what so many of us feel, that when it comes to discussing contested issues, it can be hard to find common ground, and it can often feel easier to avoid than understand. Choose to understand. Because as John Paul teaches us, some of the most revolutionary acts we can take to improve our social fabric are also the most simple. Practice humanizing habits. Refuse to belittle others. Listen to understand. Speak about your own deep convictions without blame, retreat, or demonization. And stay curious about people's lived experiences, especially when different from yours. Notice when you become defensive. Choose reflection over reaction. And practice patience and humility. As John Paul also reminds us, never doubt the power of better communication. I would love you to read and share this pocket guide and his op-ed and consider how these ideas might be applied and amplified within your own network. And if you're interested in learning more from John Paul, well, then come on right back here next week to hear my conversation directly with John Paul Lederach. Until next time, thanks. And that brings us to the end of this short form episode of Mission Forward. If you heard something that's going to stick with you, drop me a line at carrie@mission.partners and let me know what's got you thinking. And definitely check out some of our longer form shows on the power of communications. Mission Forward is produced with the support of Sadie Lockhart in association with True Story FM. Engineering by Pete Wright. If your podcast app allows for ratings and reviews, I hope you will consider doing just that for this show. But the best thing you can do to support Mission Forward is simply to share the show with a friend or a colleague. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you next time.